When you hear the words self-love, what comes to mind? Bubble baths, spa treatments, treating yourself, or maybe something even more negative like selfishness, narcissism, egotistical behavior, or worse. Self-love is one of those phrases that gets used absolutely everywhere, but it is commonly misunderstood as far as how deeply this term goes. And because it's misunderstood, people are afraid to love themselves fully. They worry that if they choose themselves, they'll become selfish. If they set boundaries, they'll appear cold and uncaring. And if they stop people-pleasing, they will disappoint others. But real self-love is not selfish. Today, we are going to talk about 6 common misconceptions about self-love. Hi, my name is Michelle Fondin. I'm the author of 14 published books, including these 2 upcoming books, Love Me Unconditionally, a spiritual guide to self-love and inner peace, and the companion workbook. Now, these 2 books will be released on May 20th of 2026 on Amazon, and you can pre-order author-signed copies on my website, lovemeunconditionally.com, and you will get a free 14 Traits of Unconditional Self-Love poster. It's a great poster. It's laminated, and you will get that for free if you order this month in May of 2026 on my website. If you are new to this channel, I want to welcome you here. Thank you for subscribing below. Click on the bell, scroll up to all for all notifications, and thank you for giving the video a thumbs up. Okay, let's jump right into those 6 common misconceptions of self-love. The first common misconception of self-love is all about bubble baths, spa treatments, and treating yourself. Now, while those things can be included in self-love as part of self-care, and self-care is so important, I am not undermining the effects of taking time for yourself. In the book, I really talk about how when I was a mom, I still am a mom, but when I was a mom of 3 young children, I never had time to take care of myself. I never even looked at myself in the mirror. That's a true story. And self-care is so incredibly important. I didn't get that. I truly didn't get that. But self-love does not stop there. And a lot of people think like, oh, if I care for my physical body, then I must be loving myself. And I'm telling you right now that that is one small fraction of self-love. So if you're thinking that it's all about just getting a nice haircut, getting your hair dyed, getting your nails done, that is not the case. It's part of it, but it is not the full story. Self-love misconception number 2, loving yourself means you are selfish. Many women especially are taught that if you care about yourself, then you are selfish. Love then becomes self-sacrifice. And while men can do this too, and that certainly is true, women do it more. Women do it more. As natural caretakers, as natural bearers of children, women learn from a very early age that it is not polite, it is not good to think of yourself. When you only consider other people, that is self-abandonment. And that opens you up to a whole host of other problems, including people-pleasing, which is not great. People-pleasing is about being a liar and a deceiver, and I do explain that in my book, I promise you. When we begin to honor our needs, our true needs, we might feel selfish because that's not the way we were taught. But love is not about sacrifice. Yes, indeed. When we have people in our lives, especially dependents in our lives, there may be a sacrificial element to it. But when you consider how you love and how you teach love and give love to yourself, you don't want to pass forward or pay it forward in this misconception that love is about sacrifice and self-abandonment, because then we create many generations of people that have this notion that loving yourself or thinking of your own needs is selfish, and that's just wrong. Needs need to get met, and they will get met in one way or another. So it's better for you to think of yourself first than to abandon your own needs. And when you do that, you are giving from fullness instead of depletion. Self-love misconception number 3. Boundaries are cold and uncaring. Many people hesitate in setting boundaries because they think that if they set a boundary, that it shows that they're cold, mean people, uncaring, like they have a brick wall in front of them and the other person. The way it was explained to me and the way that I explain boundaries is that boundaries are fences with a swinging door. A boundary says, here is where I end and where you begin. So a boundary is not cold. It is not uncaring. In fact, a boundary is about self-protection, and most often it's about protecting the other person as well, because it is based in honesty. It is based in self-honesty first, and this is so important that you hear that. It is based in self-honesty first. Most people, 99% of the population, is not honest with themselves at all, because they allow people to trample all over their boundaries because they're afraid. They're afraid of seeming unkind, uncaring, and cold. So relationships become very confusing, and then you have a lot of guilt and shame and resentment as a result of it. Healthy boundaries allow relationships to become honest interactions with each other. They allow love to become respectful, safe, and mutual. So it goes both ways. If I set a boundary, then that means I care about me enough to care about you. And if I respect your boundaries, I know that you respect you enough so that I can also care about you. So boundaries are healthy for everyone in the relationship. Self-love misconception number 4. Self-love means you don't need anyone. This is a huge misconception about self-love. Self-love is not about stark independence. It's not about building walls around yourself. It's not about being hyper-independent, saying you do not need anyone. That is a falsity anyway. If you're living on this earth, you need other people, right? Unless you are self-sustaining on a farm somewhere where you don't need electricity, you grow your own food, you've dug your own well, and you make your own clothes. Most people don't live like that. But if you have this notion that if you love yourself and really care about yourself and look out for your needs first, that means you don't need anybody else, or that you're hyper independent, that is really based on a wound, because you've heard people say that, right? You've heard people say, like, I don't need anybody. I just have myself, right? It's silly. It's silly, really. We all need other people. We do not live in a vacuum. Humans are social creatures. Having relationships are important. They're essential to our health and well-being. They say that people who live the longest and live the healthiest have great relationships. Now, we're talking about all kinds of relationships, right? Significant other, family, friends, community, the world at large. If you consider self-love is the starting point, It's the starting point of your healthy relationships. It's not to the exclusion of relationships. Self-love misconception number 5. Self-love is narcissism. Now, this is very close to self-love is selfish, right? But people like to throw around this term narcissism today all the time. Now, now let me just say this. When I was doing research for my book, I studied or restudied Erik Erikson, who is a psychologist back in the 20th century, Erik Erikson's stages of psychosocial development. And in fact, there are 2 of those stages in which narcissism is normal. It's a normal part of human development. Now, the first stage is infancy. The infant must be narcissistic in order to receive what it needs. And the second stage that is very normal to be narcissistic is adolescence. Because the adolescent is kind of shedding the skin of childhood and taking on the skin of adulthood, but they don't really know where they fit yet. And so they really need to be super self-focused in order to figure out who they're becoming. So I believe that narcissism today, in today's day and age, is overused, and people basically use it to say, here's a person that I was with either as a lover or a friend. They're not serving my needs, and so they must be a narcissist. Really, if you think about it, that's how people generally use it. Self-love is not about being a narcissist. Self-love is about caring for yourself enough to ensure that your basic needs are met, that your relational needs are met, that your emotional needs are met. It's caring for your body, certainly. It's nourishing your soul. It's spending time with yourself. If you think about it, relationships all require time and effort to nourish them, as in anything in life. And if you are not spending time with yourself, in relationship with yourself to nourish yourself, then you are going to wither and die. That relationship will fade away, wither, and die. And in fact, it is that makes people narcissistic, okay? It's not loving themselves more. It's a complete disconnection from themselves because they're so disconnected from themselves that they're seeking it outside of themselves. They're seeking validation. They're seeking approval. And that's what makes them look narcissistic, because they're kind of like the kid in the classroom who doesn't know any better, right? When kids first go to school, they're in preschool or maybe they're in kindergarten and they're jumping up and down in the back going, me, pick me, right? And that is what an adult person will do who has completely cut off the relationship with themselves. The 6th common misconception about self-love is you accept things as they are and never change. Everything changes, right? Everything changes. If you don't get with the program, again, you are going to diminish, wither away, die, right? You need to change. Change is constant. Change is happening anyway. So stagnation is when things start to fall apart for you in every aspect of your life. This self-love is not about, I just accept me for who I am. I accept my intelligence. I accept my body. I accept my emotional state. This is just the way I am. If I react in anger, this is just the way I am, right? I love myself for responding in anger all the time. It's not about that, right? It's not about stopping the learning process. It's about understanding that you can love yourself in this current state while seeking improvement in various aspects of your life. Because change is the only constant. And if we don't change, we stagnate. And the stagnation point is the point of decay, right? If you stagnate long enough, decay happens. So it's about loving yourself at the point at which you are at all stages, and understanding that this is a process. Life is a process. Life is a journey. The only constant is change. Things are always in motion. Things are always changing. But you can love yourself even if you conceive of yourself as not being perfect, right? So that's what it's about. A lot of people think that if they hate themselves, they will make their lives better. Meaning if they're really self-critical, they're like, I hate my thighs, or I hate the fact that I never finished college, or I hate the fact that I get frustrated a lot. That's not going to create positive change. You have to give yourself grace. You have to be your best friend. And it's from that jumping point that you can make the greatest amount of changes. So look, I discovered a few years ago that loving myself unconditionally was the most important thing I could do on my spiritual journey. I fumbled through until I found this. It wasn't like I was seeking it out. The journey found me. And once I really got that from a visceral standpoint, that's when everything started to change in my life. And in fact, that is why I wrote the books, Love Me Unconditionally, A Spiritual Guide to Self-Love and Inner Peace, and the workbook. And that's why I'm creating an online course and live events to support this. The only relationship that truly counts is the relationship with yourself. Like I said, it is the jumping point. It is the starting point for everything else in your life to go well. And if you do not develop and grow that relationship with yourself into a holistic relationship on every level, you will find that your life is a constant stream of the same problems, of the same relationships, of the same dissatisfaction that you've had all along. I would highly encourage you to consider this seriously, the relationship with yourself being the most important relationship you can nourish now. I want to thank you so much for joining me here today. Thank you for subscribing to my channel below. Click on the bell, scroll up to all for all notifications, and thank you for giving the video a thumbs up. Thank you for sharing this video with others who you know need to work on their own self-love. Thank you so much for your support of my work. You can purchase one or more of my published books, and I will see you in the next video.